Hello and welcome to the video demonstration of the lab titled GNS3. This lab is just really an intro to GNS3, get you started with it, learning how to use it, add devices, create links, and so on. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've got GNS3 open, and when it opens up it asks about a project. And from here I can either open a recent project or I can create a new one. If I try to create a new project that already exists, I'm going to get this error. It already exists. So if that happens, then I can come just right to my file menu and open a new blank project, and I can name it something that doesn't already exist. You'd think it'd let you rename it if you do that, but it just kind of kills it for you. So I'll just call this intro. So now that I've got a project, notice my background here, my work area has changed to white. And I can come over here to the left and look at all devices. And for this lab, I need a pfSense firewall, I need a switch, and I need the web terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag all of those. And these devices are virtual devices, so you just can't click them and have them start. They have to go through their boot sequence and everything. So whenever I build a lab with GNS3, the first thing I do is drag all the devices I need. Step 2 is I'm going to click this button and start all the devices. So while I'm making my connections and doing stuff, these devices can boot up in the background. So the next step I need to do is I need to change the host name of my router. I don't like this default name, so I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to change the host name, and I'll call it Soho for small office home office -1, and then cancel. Next step I want to do, I believe, is going to be, I've started all the nodes, I've changed the device name. Now I want to look at this device and record its login credentials. Whenever you go in GNS3, if you right click on a device and click on configure, it'll bring a tab like this up, and most appliances under the usage tab already have the default login credentials. So my login is admin/pfSense, so I need to keep track of that. Also, it tells me my default LAN port is EM1. That's good information to have. So I can close that. Now I'm going to go ahead and create my connections. So to do that, I'm going to use my connections tool over here, and I'll just click on the web terminal, and then I'll drag over to the switch, and I will connect to the switch Ethernet 1. I'll do the same thing over here. I'll connect Ethernet 2 to EM1. And let me go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit just so we can see what's going on here a little better. Now I've got these connections, but I can't really see what they are, so if I come up here to this icon, I can view my interface labels, and I can click and drag them. And this isn't really, it's just helpful to see what interfaces are what. Now the next step, this isn't really on the lab, but I like to do it on anything I do, is I always like to put my IP addresses on my devices. So I've got this notes tool here, and I'm just going to go ahead and click in 192.168.1.1, and on this device I'll create a note 192.168.1.10. This is so helpful in labs. Instead of trying to look at a document and figure out which devices have which IP addresses, when you have these addresses right on your devices, it makes it so much easier. So I've got my addresses assigned, and the next step, I believe, is going to be to console into my web terminal. So for that to happen, all I need to do is right click and click console. That's going to open up a VNC connection or a kind of a remote desktop type connection into this web terminal. It's really just bringing up this connection. So as I bring this up, it brings up a web browser, but I don't have an IP address on this device yet, so I need to do that. I need to put an IP address on it. The way I do that is I come here to the bottom left corner and I open up my command terminal. And this is kind of small, so I can click here and zoom in, or I can hit Control-Shift+ if I want this terminal to get bigger. Now the next step is going to be to put an IP address on this thing. So the way I do that is with the IP address command, IPADDR add, and the address I'm going to use. Actually, I'm going to do it wrong the first time so you can see how to correct it if you make any mistakes. So the command is IP address add, and then the address 192.168.2.10/24, and I'm going to apply that address to the device interface Ethernet 0. And if I want to verify that, I can use the command ifconfig. So I'm checking myself, and yes, it applied the interface, but wait, that's the wrong address. I have a typo in there, so I need to fix that. Now I can use the IP address delete command and retype it, but I can also just go here and use my up arrows. Just cycle through my command history, and I can just come in here with the left arrow and then backspace to change add to delete. And that deleted the address, and I can check it again with ifconfig, and as you can see, that IP address is no longer there. So now let's put the right address in there. So I will do the IP address add, left arrow, and I'm going to change that to 1. And ifconfig again, just to make sure that it's in there correctly. So now that I've got an IP address on here, I can go ahead and just close my terminal, and now I can type that address into my web browser. And what's happening now is this web terminal device is sending a web request to the Soho router. The Soho router doesn't really have a way to configure it. You have to log into it through the web. It's got a web interface, much like most home routers do. And it's giving me this message saying that I don't recognize the security certificate. Well, that's to be expected. The Soho router doesn't have a signed certificate from a valid certificate authority or anything like that. It just made up its own, and we can choose whether we want to accept that or not. We're in a lab environment. We're going to click on advanced, and we will accept the risk and continue. And now we should get the login page. So the login page, admin, and then password. And it's going to ask if I want to save it in my web browser. Sure, why not? And that should load the page. Give it a second, and there we have. So now we're actually logged into this home router from our web terminal, essentially a PC, and we can see the screen. Notice it's giving us a warning, you're using the default password, please change it. So anyway, this concludes the lab for the intro to GNS3. I hope you found this useful, and thanks for watching.